Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. And today we are going to discuss the synopsis of chapter number 2 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And the chapter 2 is titled as Content of the Gita Summarized. And this is based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, otherwise known as ISKCON. So we will begin the synopsis with the Mangalacharan prayers. So Mangalacharan is for invoking auspiciousness. So please chant these prayers. These are very auspicious prayers. And whenever we begin something, some endeavor, we begin by praying to the Lord. So let's recite these verses. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So these prayers have beautiful meaning, and in one of these sessions I have discussed in details this meaning of what we are chanting here. So anybody who have not gone through that particular session, I think it's session number 3, and if you want to understand why or to whom are we making these prayers, or what is the purpose of Mangalacharan prayers, so then you can go through that video. So now let's see the information which is going to come in chapter number 2, or what are the details that is presented by Krishna in chapter number 2. So when there was a discussion between Arjuna and Krishna, there was no kind of chapter because it was a discussion going on. So later on the acharyas, they gave proper title and made it as a chapters. So these many verses becomes one chapter. So that's how these titles were given. So those were initially given by Srila Vyasadeva. He titled them, and then later on the acharyas also gave different titles based on their understanding or whatever has been revealed to them. So some of the acharyas, they give title of this chapter as Sankhya Yoga. So some of them named that as Sankhya Yoga, whereas Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the father of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is Guru of Srila Prabhupada. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed Srila Prabhupada to translate all the books into English and then present it to the entire globe. So that's what Srila Prabhupada did, and then he opened ISKCON centers all over the world. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a magistrate in the district of Jagannath Puri. So he was a very well qualified person, expert in English, Sanskrit and many other languages. And he gave the title of chapter 2 as Contents of the Gita Summarized. And why he did it, we will see. The entire Gita, the content can be summarized in chapter 2. That's why he gave it like this. So Srila Prabhupada, following Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he then gave the title for chapter 2 as the content of the Gita summarized. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written so many literatures. Actually, he revived the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya movement. So after Lord Chaitanya left, about 300 years later, the entire Vaishnavism was towards its bottommost point. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, and then he revived the movement by giving his immense literary work. He re-established what Lord Chaitanya had already given. So his Acharya is he's also considered as the seventh Goswami. So there are 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan who have been instructed in specific. Lord Chaitanya instructed Sri Rupa Goswami and Sri Sanatan Goswami. So Rupa Goswami is our Sampradaya Acharya, and we are known as Rupanugas because we are following Rupa Goswami, and his elder brother is Sanatana Goswami. So Lord Chaitanya actually instructed both of them directly. But then there are other Goswamis like Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, then Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Jiva Goswami. So these are the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And these 6 Goswamis have given immense literature, or whatever is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, they have written it down in terms of book. In Sanskrit they wrote all those, Sanskrit or Bengali language. But then later Srila Prabhupada translated all this for us, so it's easy for us to understand in English. So the connection between chapter 1 and chapter 2, because this is a flow of conversation which is going on between Arjuna and Krishna. So the connection is, we'll see the connection, that the chapter 1 begins with Dhritarashtra asking a question to Sanjaya, that what is going on in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and then Sanjaya replying. He sees, and in the summary we have discussed all the details, and of course verse by verse also we have discussed that in the previous videos. So Arjuna, when he requests Krishna to take the chariot in the middle of the battlefield, so Krishna drives the chariot. Here we see the chariot is between the 2 armies, and then Arjuna sees his relatives and he is completely depressed, and he gives various reasons that why he doesn't want to fight. And his reason for not fighting, which was given in chapter number 1, are these are the 4 reasons. First is compassion. His heart was overwhelmed with compassion and he didn't want to fight. And then he's saying that I cannot enjoy if my relatives are all dead. And then third thing he says is saintliness and a fear of sinful reactions of killing the Kauravas. So he doesn't want to go to hell and suffer in the hell eternally. That's what he's saying. And the fourth is destruction of family and the destruction of entire dynasty. And then the Varna Shankaras will appear in the society, and that's how he gave all the reasons. That's the 4th reason. And so this is how it ended, that he kept his bows and arrows and queues, everything down, and he sat in the chariot. So after that he puts more arguments in chapter 2. So the beginning of chapter 2 he discusses more the same topic in more depth with Krishna, and after that he actually surrenders because he gets confused. So first Arjuna presents more doubts and reasons to avoid fighting, and then gets completely confused. He gets confused, and his relation with Krishna changes from friend to guru disciple. So this is because he is going through a phase where he could not decide what is good for me, what is bad for me. So that is indecision. He says, I am like totally confused. So I become your disciple. So this is the right thing. That's why this lamentation of Arjuna is known as Arjuna Vishada Yoga, because his lamentation became the impetus to surrender to Krishna. So this is what we have to learn, that anything we do in this world, we can connect with Krishna. So that's why all the topic in Bhagavad Gita is ended with yoga. Now this particular chapter is Sankhya Yoga. So similarly, the previous chapter had two sections. The first part was Sainya Nirikshan Yoga, observing the armies in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And then second part was Arjuna Vishada Yoga, means Arjuna's lamentation. Vishada is lamentation. So here we see that Arjuna is now surrendered to Krishna, and until Arjuna surrenders to Krishna, Krishna doesn't start speaking. So before this, in chapter number 1, Arjuna gave a decision that I don't want to fight. So he decided that. So even when he decided, then there was no need for Krishna to speak. Right? So until somebody surrenders, that's what Krishna is teaching, the art of hearing. The entire chapter 1, we see that Krishna didn't speak a single word. Of course, he say that when he takes a chariot in the middle of the battlefield, he tells Arjuna that, see, I have brought you in front of your relatives, and they are all ready to fight. So this is what he says, that much. That's the thing Krishna speaks. But in chapter 1, he just listens. So we, in the contemporary world, we are saying that, one need to learn the art of hearing. So Krishna over here actually is teaching by his example, that he is just listening to what Arjuna is saying. So similarly, I work with the hospital industry. So we are actually taught that, the doctors and, even in my industry in which I work is software industry. So listening is a good skill. So we generally don't have that skill. We want to all speak. But Krishna is teaching that, one must be patient. One must be ready to hear. So unless the doctor hears the patient and understands what is the trouble the patient is going through, how can he then prescribe? So similarly over here, Krishna is very patiently listening to Arjuna, and he is trying to diagnose his problem. So these are the problems. The patient Arjuna has this problem of compassion, enjoyment, fear of sinful reactions, and destructions of family. So these are the arguments which Arjuna is presenting. So then later in chapter number 2, Krishna is going to systematically counteract these arguments. So that's why Krishna is teaching how to listen, how to connect with the person, how to listen emphatically. And then when Arjuna surrenders, when Arjuna is saying that Sishyaste ham sadimam tam prapannam, means now I become your surrendered disciple. I am your disciple now. Please instruct. So when Arjuna takes that position of disciple, only at that time Krishna starts speaking. So this is a very important lesson for us to learn, that we should not advise anyone and everyone, for free, like that. Unless the person is surrendered, they are not going to listen what we are going to speak. So there are 5 sections in chapter number 2. This is just a preview which we are going through, that what is going to come in chapter number 2. So this synopsis is designed to give us the advertisement of what is going to come in this chapter. So there are 5 sections, A, B, C, D and E. And in these sections, the first section, A, is verse number 1 to 10. That is Arjuna's further doubts and his surrender. And then once he surrenders, then Krishna actually starts speaking. So here is a nice, kind of flow, kind of information which I put here, so that we get an idea what is going to happen in these verses. So Let's see. Lord Krishna summarizes all the instruction in Bhagavad Gita in this particular chapter. And since Arjuna was horrified at the thought of killing his relatives, Krishna begins his teachings. And he begins his teaching in section B. So section A, Arjuna is still giving further doubts and he surrenders. And then section B, actually Krishna starts speaking. So the first thing that Krishna speaks is Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is analytical study of matter and spirit. So what is this body and who is driving this body? So he's basically talking about soul. So that is a Sankhya philosophy. He's talking about that the soul and the body is different. This is how Bhagavad Gita begins. Bhagavad Gita begins with the information of that we are not this body, we are soul. And we are also eternal. So here soul is eternal and imperishable. And material body is inert and outer covering of the soul. So these are the things, this is the essence of the entire verse number 11 to 30. That is where the discussion of jnana. Jnana means knowledge. So Krishna is giving the knowledge of soul to Arjuna, saying that you are eternal soul. You are just traversing, because before this body which you have, you had another body. And after this body is killed or it perished, when the body perishes, then you get a next body. And the soul keeps on going like this. This is called as transmigration, moving from one body to another body. So this is the first information. And for the soul, there is no death. So basically, Krishna is giving the information that soul is eternal. So this is excellent news for all of us, because we all are then eternal. Krishna is saying that me means Krishna, then all the kings, and he is talking about Arjuna and all the kings who have assembled there. Never there was a time that they didn't exist, and never in the time in the future they will not cease to exist. Means the point is that Krishna is saying that we are eternal and we are going to eternally exist. We are only changing the body. So that is verse 11 to 30, and then verse 31 to 38. Then Krishna is giving the application. Once you know that you are not the body, you are soul. So then acting on the platform of soul, how to act on the platform of soul, that is discussed in 31 to 38. So this is the section where Krishna talks about karma khanda. So if Arjuna dies in the battle, he is promoted to heaven. If he wins the battle, he will rule the earth. Right? And if he doesn't fight, then dishonor will overcome him. And if he has to leave this battlefield, then this will be dishonor for Arjuna. So that is the argument Krishna is giving, that you fight, because now you know that you are not going to be killed. You are a soul. So you fight with all your zeal, all the enthusiasm, fight this battle and fight, so that if you win, you go to the heavenly planets. If you die, you go to heavenly planets. And if you win, then you will win the kingdom anyway. But then the next section Krishna is talking about is higher than karma kanda, that is buddhi yoga or nishkama karma yoga. So this is a very new term which Krishna introduces in Bhagavad Gita. So that is verse number 39 to 53, buddhi yoga or nishkama karma yoga. That is, you have to fight, but fight without any reaction. So when you fight, normally when we think that when we fight and we kill somebody, then we'll get reactions. But if you fight on the platform of nishkama karma, and what is nishkama karma? So that is, Krishna is explaining over here. This is the art of all work. So what is nishkama karma? Work in the mode of selfless service, unattached to the results of the world, and with resolute determination, and then with mind focused on Krishna. And then he's saying that fight simply because Krishna is desiring this. And what is the result of fighting in this way? When you fight in this way, then you do not get any sinful reactions and you're able to get out of the cycle of birth and death. So these are the two beautiful results. You don't get any sinful reactions for even killing. And then at the end of the life, you can go back to Godhead. That is, you can be free from the cycle of birth and death. That's the result. So this is how Krishna is explaining. This is the art of all work. So this is a very important section, and we will go into details of this verse by verse, and we will learn, because this is very practical. Actually, everything which we do, for here Arjuna was supposed to fight in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But in every activity which we do, this principle can be applied, and this is so beautiful that it keeps us engaged in the world. Krishna is never saying, Arjuna, that you renounce work. Normally we have a misconception that spirituality should be taken at number one, when we have nothing to do, at the old age, when we get retired, when we don't have any other activity, then it becomes spiritual. So Krishna is defying all these misunderstandings which we have. And the other misconception people have, that when you take to spiritual life, then you'll have to give up everything. So no, Krishna is saying over here that that is not required. You can be in this world, you can be the part of this world, but you can be still detached. So basically Krishna is encouraging detached work. So what is to be detached? So detached from the fruits of the work, the fruits of the result, or the result of the work. And then just do that work as a service. So when we perform any activity in that way, then we do not get bound by the sinful reaction which is caused by that particular action. So then when Krishna explains Nishkama Karma Yoga in verse 39 to 53, then Arjuna has a question, that what are the symptoms of such a person who is in this particular platform, in the Nishkama Karma Yoga platform. So then he is using the word Sthita Pragya. Sthita Pragya means a person who is in that state. What is his symptom? What is a symptom of somebody who is undisturbed in this kind of difficult situations, right? So what are the symptoms of that person? Okay, so these symptoms Krishna describes in verse number 54 to 72 in section E. Okay, so symptoms of a self-realized soul. So these are the symptoms: free from desire to enjoy the senses, have a steady mind, indifferent from good and evil, right? So basically equipoised, have a taste for devotional activities. So that such a person has taste for devotional activities. Devotional activities means any activity which you do, we offer it to the Lord. That is devotional activity. So then control the senses. You want to control the senses. How to control the senses is given here. Control the senses by engaging them in devotional activities. So this is the trick of controlling the senses. And when somebody control the senses and always engaged in devotional activities, then what happens if somebody is situated like this even at the time of death? So being thus situated, at the time of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So even if we do even little of this kind of activities, or in this state of mind when we perform the activities, and even if we do it towards the end of our life, still Krishna is saying that that person can enter into the kingdom of God. So this is what is the summary of what is going to be discussed in chapter number 2. And then Krishna gives a warning that one who is not connected in this way, means one who doesn't perform this kind of things. So this is applicable to Arjuna, because Arjuna is not thinking in this way, the way Krishna is explaining. So Krishna is saying one who is not connected with the Supreme or not doing devotional activities cannot have steady mind or peace or happiness. So these are the key So if you want to have a steady mind, or if you want to have peace in your life, or if you want to be happy, then we have to connect all the things which we do in service to Krishna. This is what the essence of the entire chapter. So when somebody does it in this way, then they become peaceful, they become happy, they become steady, and they can easily control their mind, and at the end of the life, one is able to go or break the cycle of birth and death. So cycle of birth and death is nothing but the soul moving from one body to other. So that is called as cycle of birth and death. Liberation means breaking the cycle of birth and death. So that is what is the understanding of mukti or liberation. So this is in essence what is going to be discussed in chapter number 2, and whatever I have put over here, all the points, they are here in details. Right? So if you can read it, because this material will be all uploaded, so you can read all these things at your time. And then we see that the Arjuna in chapter number 1 gave like 4 reasons why he doesn't want to fight. So all these things are actually counteracted here. The compassion is counteracted by Krishna from verse 2.11 to 30. And then the enjoyment is 2.31 to 32. Destruction of family is counteracted by verse 2:45, 46 and 3:24. And then the last reason which Arjuna gives, saintliness and fear of sinful reactions. So Krishna refutes that in verse number 33 to 37. And then finally is indecision. He doesn't know what is better for him, conquering the enemy or being conquered by them. So that indecision, for that, Krishna is going to speak the entire Bhagavad Gita. And then Arjuna will be convinced by the arguments which are presented by Krishna. And then Arjuna will decide to fight. So he will pick up his Gandiva bow. So when he picks up his Gandiva bow, this indecision will be taken care. So then now he decides to fight. So that is how, these are the 5 reasons why Arjuna is not wishing to fight. Now there is a very important point to discuss about Srila Prabhupada's purport. So if you see Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita has about 700 verses. And then Krishna takes the answer of this Arjuna's question in details, because it's like discussion between Arjuna and Krishna in terms of question and answer. Arjuna is asking a question, Krishna is answering. Then in the answer there are some words, then Arjuna doesn't understand those words, so he asks further questions, and then Krishna keeps on going, answering those questions. So after answering all the questions, he at the end, towards 18th chapter, Krishna gives the most confidential knowledge. He said that whatever I have told you so far, just forget about it and do what I am telling you now. So those verses are 18.64, 65, 66. Then Ramanujacharya, he's saying that these are the charam slokas, the ultimate instruction of Krishna is given in this sloka. So Srila Prabhupada, knowing that in Kali Yuga people don't have patience, and they might even read one purport, or they might even read half a purport. So Srila Prabhupada had that concern in his mind, and because of that, he directly connects all the yoga to Bhakti Yoga. So even if it is Jnana Yoga, he will say Bhakti, because in Bhakti, Jnana is there. If it is Karma Yoga, he will say Bhakti Yoga. So in the purport, he will put it in terms, everything in terms of Bhakti, because Bhakti is the essence of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Bhakti means devotional service to Lord Krishna, and that is the essence of entire Bhagavad Gita. So he is putting that essence in every purport. Krishna is giving it after 600 or 700 verses, but Prabhupada is giving in every purport. So that is how the Bhaktivedanta purport becomes very powerful, and it is very very clear from the beginning that what Srila Prabhupada wants the reader to understand. He wants the reader to understand in every purport that Krishna is the goal of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna gives in 700 verses, Prabhupada gives in every purport. So it's a message is bhakti-centric message. So that's why I put this this particular slide over here to let you understand that sometimes when we read the purport we get confused that in the verse or in the translation it is Karma Yoga, but in the purport Sri Prabhupada is writing Bhakti Yoga. Why is that? Because there is a difference, there is a minute difference between, of course there is a big difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. But Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are actually connected, because you do the Karma Yoga but you offer the results to Krishna, then it becomes Bhakti Yoga. So that's why Prabhupada is trying to connect all the different kinds of yoga to Bhakti. Because Krishna wants it. Krishna wants it that way, and Krishna declares this most confidential knowledge towards the end of Bhagavad Gita. But Srila Prabhupada, being the most merciful Acharya, he gives that essence of what Krishna is speaking right in the beginning of the chapter 2. Even chapter 1 also he has done that. So when we read those purports in chapter 2, we'll see that Prabhupada is writing, as I discussed, that wherever there is jnana, Prabhupada is putting bhakti. Wherever there is karma, Prabhupada is putting bhakti. So where there is Ashtanga Yoga, also he is putting bhakti. But that doesn't mean that Srila Prabhupada doesn't know. So that's why in the last purport of chapter number 2, he is saying in the last paragraph, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has summarized this second chapter of Bhagavad Gita as being the contents of the whole text, means contents of the whole Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matters are Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Right? In the second chapter, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga have been clearly discussed. So this is what Prabhupada is saying, that these two topics are clearly discussed. But wherever these topics was discussed, Prabhupada has put Bhakti instead of Karma. And he's saying, and a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga has been given. So just a glimpse was given as the content for the complete text. So the point I'm trying to make is that Prabhupada knows, and understanding the mood of Krishna, he is actually putting bhakti instead of either karma or jnana. So this must be clear to us when we are studying the purports. Otherwise we'll get confused that why Srila Prabhupada is writing like this. He knows it, but he purposely does it. So he purposely wants everybody to go back home, go back to Godhead. That was the purpose of Srila Prabhupada. So with this, we'll stop here and we'll start discussing verse number 1 from next session. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.